Hey everyone, Amanda Salas here from the Growth Syndicate. Listen now to an extraordinary story of resilience and reinvention. Join Mike Green as he talks with Lisa Weston, barrister, entrepreneur, and community champion, as she reveals how she shattered professional boundaries and created her own path. From the streets of East London to founding the Bright Horizons Foundation, Lisa's journey is a pulse-pounding tale of courage, passion, and success. Hear how she turned career challenges into triumphs, balanced motherhood with ambition, and discovered her true calling. This isn't just a podcast, it's a masterclass in living life on your own terms. Get ready to be inspired, motivated, and completely transformed.
People struggle with loss.
Yeah.
And who wants to go into business to not make money? But sometimes it's about, back to that, planting those seeds, building those relationships, having faith.
And then, the High Commissioner said to me, why don't you just do it? So I'd gone to the guys that own the corporate games and I'd said, look, we can do it through a foundation. Yeah. I don't want it to cost a penny because I want the money that is generated to go into that.
It's interesting you say that because I'm conscious that I obviously spend a lot of time profiling people. I can't not do it, even if I go to a pub and shake someone's hand, I'm looking at the strength of the handshake, the level of eye contact, the clothes they're wearing, the colours I profile them within seconds and I love doing it, but I can't switch it off.
So becoming head of chambers was really good because it gave me the experience in that particular area. That's a headache. Yeah. But I've since set up my own chambers. I've set up a law firm.
Because they're embarrassed doesn't mean they're honest.
No, exactly. It really doesn't. It really doesn't. And a lot of them, there are the odd ones that like to make money, but in the wrong way.
Welcome back to another episode of Success is a System. I'm here today with Lisa Weston, mother, barrister, musician. I wonder how she gets the time and where her skills end, but we're going to find out all about that. And this episode, I want to understand what motivated Lisa to go into law, where she finds the time, how she manages the time, the systems behind how she juggles all of those things and still being a very active, engaged mother. So welcome.
Thank you, Mike, for having me.
No, it's a pleasure. And I know from when we had a coffee before, I was blown away by just how much you've achieved, how much you continue to do and juggle. And I know that so many people find themselves in that where they just can't say no. And it's funny because we were talking about that, and now you've got a new foundation you're looking at, which I want to talk about as well. But I think sometimes we should say no more. We should learn to say no, but nicely. But I think sometimes we're not meant to say no. Some things do come into our life because it's what we need at that point in time. But before we get into all of that, tell me about Lisa as a little girl, mum, dad, growing up. Where was that? Who was that with? Was it like silver spoon? Was it challenged? Was it happy? Was it, all of those things? What made you the adult you are? Tell me a little bit about your childhood.
Where do I start? Okay. Well, parents are second generation Caribbean.
Right.
Dad's from Antigua, mum's from sunny St. Lucia, which is great. What a combination. So I was born and raised in East London, born in Hackney. Then mum and dad moved out to Walthamstow because it was the next best thing. It was a nicer, safer area. But I had a really happy childhood, actually.
Good.
I never remember it not being happy. I never really appreciated not having anything. I had the best of everything as far as I was concerned, but then where you are at any given time is as good as it is. Yeah. And my parents did a fantastic job. So we were happy. I've got one sister who's 5 years younger than I am. And it was very much, we were very challenged to work hard and study hard. I think mum and dad saw the value of a good education, started playing the piano at age 9, did really well, excelled at sport and music and academically. So I think to that extent, I'm very grateful to them. And we had this conversation yesterday over Easter Sunday dinner. I'm very grateful to still have my parents. Yeah, nice. It was my little boy's 9th birthday and he wanted to spend it with his grandma. Oh, so we sat there yesterday and just had a conversation about how our childhood was. And I said, you're a bit of a tiger mum, Dad. Tiger mum, if you don't know, you probably do, Mike, is how we describe typically Chinese mothers who are quite pushy and they're very encouraging of their children to develop. That was my dad. I said, you can't live vicariously through your children. I've always said that, but I do through Harrison. And it's what he's good at that we try and get him to excel at. So my parents really did the same for me to the best of their ability. And that's all I ever knew. I think about it. We didn't really have much, but I was still very happy.
And would you say because I'm always interested in the sort of work hard versus study hard and intelligence over effort. And of course, they're all part of the recipe that makes us who we are. But where would you say the scale was to the importance given to hard work? Because I see a lot of people now, and I was talking to someone about it the other day, thinking, I've got to work harder than anyone else in the company. And actually, that, whilst it's kind of admirable, holds them back because they're so busy doing that they're not seeing and overseeing and supporting sometimes. So whereas the study sometimes, or the blend of that, can make them realize that they can do a lot more with their head than their hands. So where was that? Because it sounds like you had a blend of both, but where was the kind of scale on that?
It's interesting because I think there's actually 4 parts, Mike. So I think you've got the intelligence aspect, you've got the work hard aspect. There's also working smart. And as you say, being able to see a bigger picture. So I think there are 4 aspects of it. Right. And I think as a child, what I didn't see was a bigger picture because I was in the now. So I worked hard. I would say I was an intelligent child, but how do you measure that? That's different. And that's my understanding now. Intelligence doesn't come in one form.
Yeah.
But it did then. It was like, you're good at maths, or you're good at English. It was all academic. And that was the emphasis. And it was always the emphasis in our house. Now, music was my practical thing. But could I put together a cabinet from IKEA? I can now. Yeah. The thought of it then terrified me. I was like, oh, what's this? But then I could ride a bike and I was good at sports. So I could do all of those things. But I think it was a combination of all of them that my mum and dad maybe appreciated more than I did. So it was a bit of everything, and they balance each other out as well.
Well, it's interesting because you talked about you were musical, played the piano, 9 years old. We were chatting earlier and you said about your son being very musical already, and he's 9 years old.
Yeah.
There's an increasing understanding, and I say this because I went to a school where I think we had a piano and a couple of recorders. There wasn't music to be played as such, and so we never realised the importance of it. But there's an increasing understanding that music opens up the neural pathways that actually help mathematics and science and logic. And if people think, well, music, that ain't going to be any good to anybody, they are so wrong, because it stimulates and opens up those pathways that make it easier to be academic. And actually, if someone's not good at maths, I will often say, get them to do some music. And they're connected. And we didn't know that back then.
Quite.
But it's probably what created the pathway or bridge between creativity and academics, I guess. And the fact you were doing sport was good as well, because you're getting lots of oxygen and vitamin D and what have you.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think with music, and that's how I see it, I insisted with Harrison that he learns to play the piano first, just because you can pick up any other instrument once you play the piano. But equally, he excels at maths. He's excellent. And there's definitely a link between the two. And I think that's something my parents recognised early on. Without realising that that's what it was. So they would look at other people who'd done really well. There was a lady who was a piano teacher nearby where we lived in Hackney, and her daughter was doing brilliantly at school. Yeah. She was the brightest thing. And my dad said, I'd like you to learn the piano. And I thought, okay, I'll give it a go. It suited me, not my sister necessarily, who's more the creative type. She's into film and production and communications. So we're completely different. But for me, it really worked. And I think my academic ability increased because of it.
And I mean, in effect, a lot of people, and I spend a lot of time, because of my passion for education and behaviour, saying, what did you like at school? What did you do? What was your passion? And normally it will be sport, or maths, or music / creativity. And you don't often see all three being high on someone's like enjoyment or passion point. So at which point did you start to think, I'm going to go more academic and not more musical? Or where did the battle between sport, music and maths, let's say, who won and when?
That's a very good question. And that's probably the sad part of my story, to be honest, because I loved music and excelled at it. And I made a decision to go and study law because I'd always wanted to be a barrister, just because I'm a chatterbox, probably like the sound of my own voice.
And they earned a shitload of money as well.
Well, I thought they did.
Yeah.
Okay. But the thing is, it's very much something I'd always wanted to do. So everything I did academically was geared towards that.
From what age? Where are you?
About 13.
Right.
Watched too much LA Law, Mike.
Okay.
If you remember that dodgy show.
I do.
Exactly. And I really wanted to do it. And I thought I could see myself standing up in court and doing all those things. So everything was geared towards that. So I did languages, English at A-level, history. And that is where I think I not messed myself up, because I'm not messed up, I suppose, but made slightly the wrong decision. I kept my music going, but at that point it kind of died a death, about 20 years old.
Because I
couldn't do it all.
You have a capacity of certain hours, minutes.
That's right.
Can't do everything.
There's only so much time in a day, but always had my love of music, and it then permeated into Latin and ballroom dancing and that kind of brilliant, just the rhythm of it all. It was just in me. The music's just in me. And always kept in with that. Never joined the choir at college or anything like that, but wish I'd been more musical, because now what I know, I didn't know then, is that music is just all encompassing, and that's where my passion for it now still lies. I've got my flute at home. I had an old dodgy violin. I'm going to replace it. We have the piano. It's like music central at our house, so it's beautiful.
No, it is. And I was saying earlier about one of my daughters is French horn, cello, piano. She bought a guitar, taught herself that, and the danger is it is such a passion that sometimes you'll have a full-on day at work in London, get back, run to an orchestra, and I say, you can't fit all this in. No. But the music is I think unless you get it, you wouldn't get it. It is almost like food. And once you're connected to it and you need it.
Absolutely.
And it feeds you.
It nourishes everything. Yeah. It's really...
But it also calms her. She can be really stressed, and 20 minutes in here playing on the piano or something, and she just calms down. Completely. She learned something called the Alexander technique, which is good for breathing, which is also good for stress if someone's panicking. So there's a lot along the way. But so you chose law, went into law, did a law degree, didn't need to do a law degree, but again, something I know now, and I advise everyone else, I want to be a lawyer. Why do you want to do it? Figure that one out, for one. They work crazy hours.
And they don't earn as much money as everybody thinks. Realistically, the top maybe 1% do.
Right.
But the reality is, it's quite run-of-the-mill when you're doing it. A lot of debt to get there, a lot of stress getting there, a lot of stress when you're there. And I saw an interesting post on LinkedIn the other day, a lawyer saying there must be easier ways to earn a living than this.
Yeah.
I would 100% agree with that. So I always say to anybody, don't necessarily study law at university. Yeah. Do what drives you, what your passion is. It could be music, because you can convert later. And you only lose a year or 2 years, but actually your quality of life.
And I often talk about Ian, who's corporate lawyer, been my lawyer for like 25 years, and M&A and a specialist and so on. And I think what makes him a much better lawyer is he still trains every day in martial arts. He got Cambridge's first blue for martial arts. And so he is what I might call normal. He's not so obsessed by the law that he doesn't seem to have a personality outside of the law. You know, we can go out, we can have a drink, we can chat about anything. And so this isn't just about lawyers, it's accountants, it's clergy. I think if people can have interests and a career outside of where they end, they become more whole and balanced and relatable because of it.
Absolutely. There are not that many normal lawyers, I have to say that. And this is one of the things for me, the big challenge was, I got there despite the odds. I had a form tutor at school who said to me, you'll never be a barrister. You're never going to do it. You're a black woman and it's not going to happen. And I gave him the finger, basically, and I'm doing it anyway. And that was part of the thing that propelled me. Tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do it.
And I had a quick look on sort of Dr. Google or Mr. Google. And so, was you qualified in 2003 or something?
Yes, yeah.
And I thought, Jesus Christ, you must have got qualified at 11 or something.
Don't look it, do I?
Like 22 years or whatever you've been. And so been a barrister a long time.
A long time. And I'll be honest with you, it's something I really wanted to do.
Are there many female barristers in Stephen?
There are more now.
Okay.
There are many more now. There's about 13,500 barristers in the country.
Right.
That's not many.
No.
So it's a very small...
Out of 60-something million.
Exactly. Very small, considered elite profession. But I think where it lacks is that personality we were speaking about earlier.
Yeah.
You know, that quadrant, I think, that makes someone a whole. is missing with barristers, because you have to be something you're not. And I really battled with that for a long time.
Yeah.
I think I discovered myself at about 30 years old because I had to fit the mould of a barrister. I wanted it so much that actually I lost a lot of myself in that process. In my 20s, I had a great time and I was happy. I've never been unhappy with my choices. But then I think there's so much more I could be and do.
It's interesting you say that, because I'm conscious that I obviously spend a lot of time profiling people. I can't not do it, even if I go to a pub and I shake someone's hand, I'm looking at the strength of the handshake, the level of eye contact, the clothes they're wearing, the colours I profile them within seconds, and I love doing it, but I can't switch it off. But what I also know is from an age, so you get that kind of behaviour, you then get a life stage, you then get emotional intelligence, all these things layer. But interestingly enough, a lot of people, the first time they really come up for air and think, am I happy? Am I doing what I want to be doing? Where is my life? Is probably 30. Because until then, in your teens, you're kind of parentally driven, teacher driven, told what you should do, what good people, successful people do. Then you go to uni, it's like, you got to get a good job, and the career drives you, and then you get so busy in that career, and maybe then family sort of may or may not come in. But suddenly you hit this 30. And it's like, Christ, am I old now? Of course, being 60 now, it's not old at all. But it's like, God, I haven't stopped. And it's almost like, if we talk about the hamster wheel, it's the first time people stop the wheel and think, I'm running like hell. Do I even want to be on this wheel?
Exactly.
What's good? What's bad? What's ugly? And of course, they've got a long time left, statistically speaking, but they start to think, oh, I've probably had the best years of my life. Not true. But what do I want to do? So it's interesting. When people say, oh, I was about 30, there's never a throwaway comment. Those ages, those stages are because they are standout for you. So what was that moment? What was the trigger around that time that made you start to question?
Believe it or not, I think I've mentioned this to you before. I left the profession for a little while because I became so disillusioned with it. I felt I was just going into a boxing ring, knocking 10 shades out of somebody else every time I went into court. Because they were doing the same. Constantly.
You win or lose.
Yeah, it's almost like someone is wanting to make themselves look more intelligent than you are. Then you get battered by the judge, you get battered by an opponent, you get battered by your clients, because they're never happy. In a litigant's world, as I call it, they're always going to complain about something. If it's not your opponent or the judge, it's you. So you have to withstand that level of battery, if I can call it that, every single day. And I just thought, do you know what? I've had enough of this. I've had enough of being something I'm not. I'm an East End girl. I'm a happy person. I speak with a slight East End accent. It's been refined, unrefined. I slip back into it when I'm in Peterborough, speak like I'm from Peterborough. Then I'm home, and I just have that about me, and I relate to people that I'm around. And I didn't really, how can I put it, strike a chord with the profession in that way. Yeah. People aspire to be KCs and judges. I don't.
But was there something missing? I mean, were you in a relationship at that point? Was it just that the job, there was a realization the job wasn't what you thought it might be? Yeah. Was there missing out on family stuff because you were busy, didn't have time? I'm dwelling on it a little bit because sometimes people will say, oh, I keep thinking about when I was 15, and they think it's throwaway. It really isn't. These are the pivotal moments. And so I'm interested to explore why you think that might be. I'm interested to understand if you could go back now and have a conversation with your 30-year-old self.
Yeah.
Would you have done it differently, whatever you did then? And so let's explore that a little bit.
That was a crucial point. That's a really good question, Mike, because I think what I realised at 30 years old with the profession that I'd clung so tightly to, I couldn't be myself. Yeah. And myself was not, it was a bit too academic, if that even makes sense. I'd gone into a profession that's potentially highly academic, but it just didn't suit me. It didn't suit my personality. And I'm one of those people who's very driven, but I love having some sort of impact. And I didn't have any. So I got to 30 years old.
People think barristers, you have impact all the time. You change people's lives. You
can
win,
do. Yeah, you can do. But it's on a very, how can I put it? It's in a very specific way that didn't necessarily match my personality.
So what was missing? Was it the musical flamboyance? Was it you're obviously very outgoing. Did you have to be more staid?
I did.
Did you feel trapped in this, suit, wig, whatever.
It was exactly that. I had to turn out a certain way every day. I had to wear certain things. I had to look a certain way. Now, the profession's different now, and I think they're making it more diverse and accessible and all the rest of it. But then again, they're just labels. They're just labels. The reality is, to succeed in that profession, you have to be a certain way, or you're perceived to be. There's a lot of people fighting against that. As a woman, for example, I didn't have Harrison until I was 37 years old. No problem, that suited me, because actually he's the apple of my eye.
Yeah.
And everything I do now really is geared towards and around him. And I'm happy with that. He's my legacy after all. So however he is, or, his strengths, I can help him be the best he can be. But as a barrister, we had to be a certain way at that time. That's how the profession was. I never forget when I did my pupillage, the training aspect, and we may or may not cut this bit, Mike.
You decide. Listen, the more honest, the better, because part of the reason I dig into these a little bit is people do feel trapped, but they don't escape it.
Exactly.
So as you were saying, I left the trade for a little while, a lot of people might be thinking, you mean you studied all those years?
Yeah.
You had the potential to earn all that money. As long as you were able to find the work, you could earn that money.
Right.
And you walked away. Why would someone walk away? So it's really important they understand that we only live one life,
very true.
and we only have one life. This is not a dress rehearsal. What is it? Life is not a dress rehearsal is one of the things that one of my old business partners used to say, Linada or whatever. And he was really strong on it. It's like, let's, excuse my French.
Yeah.
Let's do this, because we may never get the chance to do it again.
Exactly.
And if one person hears this, sees this and thinks, I need to stop it, it's not too late.
Yeah.
If Colonel Sanders can completely pivot at 65,
right,
and create a multi-billion-pound business by the time he was 80, then anyone, any age, is not too late.
Exactly. And I think that's right. I mean, I at 23 qualified as a barrister, and I went through the mill and I did everything I was supposed to do, and that was fine. But something was always missing, and I think you hit the nail on the head. But I finished pupillage and I was very sick. I ended up with shingles because I was so stressed. I was really unwell. And I'd attended an advocacy course for a week, a residential, which was an essential component of what we did. And I was dreadful. I had shingles. I didn't even know it. I felt terrible. It's like I had a really bad flu the whole time. And I got back and they were assessing me for a permanent role within Chambers. And I was called up by the then senior clerk, who I love dearly, and he's a really good friend of mine now. He's about to retire, but he was key for me in my profession, and even now in everything I do. And the then head of the pupillage committee. And they had me on loudspeaker, but they forgot to turn the loudspeaker bit off after I had the interview in my sick bed. And the conversation I then overheard that I shouldn't have heard went something like this. Well, Lisa's great. She's great with the clients. But James is the other option. He's more analytical. He's this and he's that, and the clerk was on my corner. Lisa's amazing. Great for business. All of these things. And the other guy was like, well, James is really, he's a stronger option. And look what happened with Wendy and Andrew. I've named people, but never mind. There could be anyone. From years before.
Fred and Mary.
Yeah, friend of it, exactly. From years before. She went off and had babies. And Andrew's still with us. Oh, there was that. And I was shocked.
And these are people working with the law.
They're working
every day,
absolutely.
fighting against prejudice.
Yeah.
And yet, suddenly, because you're a woman, that's a consideration.
Who might run
decision.
off and have babies. And it was extraordinary. And I never said anything about that conversation.
Oh, really?
I kept my mouth shut, Mike. I was 23
shame on them.
years old.
Shame on them.
Shame on them.
If they are listening, shame on you. Yeah.
But then shame on me for not saying anything, not speaking up. And it was almost that I thought I'd be considered a troublemaker. I thought, it's a sort of profession where I can't be myself. So I just kind of withered away. Needless to say.
Don't lose your thought, but I do want to come in here because people say, I knew it wasn't right, but I didn't speak up.
Yeah.
And other people think they must have been weak. Look, you're no wallflower.
No.
You're confident. You've gone into a profession that is about being a warrior day in, day out. So it's not about weakness. It's about being accepted, fitting in, not, all of that. So, and the point I want to make is even super strong warriors want to fit in. They want to be accepted. They don't want to cause too much hassle. It's hard to stand out.
Yeah, it's very hard. It's that
Do you
level
regret
of
that?
conformity. Oh, I do. I do. And it's very interesting because I've been apologised to since. That set of changes have since said, won't you come back and join us? I said, actually, no, thank you. Just because I'm at a time and place now where I don't need to. But they've apologised. You know, we sincerely regret not taking you because the individual we chose over you, he left within 2 years. They did.
And you know the clerk had your corner, and
he had my
sounds
corner.
like he's been a mentor and
He
an
has
important
been.
part since.
Yeah, he's incredible. I mean, we kind of rekindled our relationship about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And he's been an absolute rock for me, just in terms of how my business has developed, the things I've done, and the support he's given me. And he said, look, whenever you need help, I'm here.
Nice,
and that's,
nice.
you know, it's invaluable. So every few months we have our long lunch and our catch up, and it's wonderful.
And I say to my girls, you know, they're 22 and 26. Well, I say it to a lot of people, but particularly when you say you see legacy, I say, look, these friends, and one of them's going through the transition where she's now busy in her career. I mean, they both are, but friends fall away, and you think, oh no, I'm not in touch with my school friends. I'm not in touch with my uni friends, and I'm losing touch, and I can't get this. And I say, if you get one good friend a decade, you are blessed. You only ever need a handful of good friends. And actually, if you have many more than that, you won't have time for them anyway. You know, you can have lots of acquaintances. You'll always find someone who will have a drink or do something with you. But find one good friend, one person who can touch your life and be a part of that is life-changing. And so, God bless what was his name? Should you give him a name check or is not?
The clerk.
Yeah.
I will do indeed. Clerk Chessis. He's an incredible clerk.
Brilliant.
Highly respected as a clerk throughout the profession.
Yeah.
And he's fantastic.
Brilliant.
I wish he'd retire and come and work with me.
But a lot of these people touch people's lives and never know, because people don't sometimes go back and say, do you know?
That's right.
Just hearing that, because obviously you heard them sort of basically judging you for something you can't change. You can't not be a woman, you know.
Exactly.
They're almost making you think maybe I shouldn't have kids, you know, because that's going to hold me back, kind of thing. But knowing someone in your corner that didn't have to stand up for you, did. Was that one of the points that made you leave the profession?
I think it did. And then at that point, so fast forward, I moved to Ireland, long story, for about 7 years and set up a business there completely by accident.
What was this?
This was, so I'd met this guy at a kebab shop after a night out.
As you do.
As you do, in Dublin. I'd gone to visit a friend, and he was running this bed business. He was selling bedroom furniture at the back of his van. That didn't go down well with my mum and dad. They were like, what are you doing with him? So anyway, fast forward 3 years, we opened up this incredible retail business at the height of the Celtic Tiger, and then quickly lost everything when that collapsed. But it was great. Apartment fit outs for all these apartment blocks and developments that were going up. It was incredible, and a great grounding, I think, and learning how you do and don't do business. That liquidated, and about the same time, I'd got involved in network marketing, roped into something else.
Come back to But the first thing I want to capture is
Yeah.
failure is a really key part of every successful
100%.
person I know, and that's really important. But also, I want to know about the failure, the impact that had on you, how you overcome that, because that hits our ego, it hits our pocket, it makes us feel stupid, less worthy somehow. But equally, you talk about network marketing, and I got, I wouldn't say even seduced. I mean, I got passionate about Amway, which was a big door-to-door network selling soap kind of thing. Yeah. And listen, it never worked. We did all right, but it never worked for us. But the education program, the
100%.
tape of the week, the book of the month, the positive motivation,
Brilliant.
the environment where people were like more positive than average transformed me.
And what
Tell
it
me
did
about
as
that
well,
for you, though. So the failure?
Yeah, the failure coincided with this incredible network marketing business that I was passionate about. Not because the products were amazing, obviously, and you have to like those, I agree.
Yeah.
But what I learned and what it gave to me. So even though at age 23, 24, I thought, goodness me, this barrister stuff, I can't be dealing with it. I leg it to Ireland. I make a lot of money, lose a lot of money. I go full cycle, get roped into network marketing, kind of build that to a really successful level, where I shouldn't be building it in Ireland because they weren't in the Irish market, but we figure out a backdoor way through Northern Ireland. What a blessing to be able to think that way in business.
Brilliant.
And what I didn't appreciate was the grounding that gave me. But by the age of 30, I really woke up to myself, because I thought, I've done all of that, as you say, Mike.
Back to 30 again. Yeah.
The education, back to 30. I've had enough of that profession that tries to keep me in a box. And I've opened my mind up. So we've lost this business, but guess what? I had a whole box of products. Yeah. So I got to work. And within 6 months, I was making quite a decent amount of money every month in network marketing, running it in the UK and in a territory that hadn't even opened yet.
Brilliant.
And then I got slightly disillusioned with that company, because the products just kept changing, the parameters kept changing. And this is why network marketing didn't work for me. I value the education deeply. And even today, it's framed me in a lot of ways. And I think differently to many other barristers who thought, you're a barrister, what are you doing that for? Yeah. Why are you selling stuff? I was like, well, if you don't sell something, you're not getting anywhere in life, in my view. We all sell something.
Yeah, even if you're selling your barrister skills.
Your barrister skills, but you're not selling those either. So you're deeply unhappy. Your profession's not going the way you want it to go, because you can't sell yourself, but I can. Yeah. So I always hung on to the barrister thing, because I thought, how can I use this and make something good of it? But that parked for a little while. So network marketing was a thing for about 3 years. And I loved it. I lived and breathed it, but the company changed its parameters. Then I moved to another company. So everybody who was my family in that company disowned me. How could you choose their products over ours? And I thought, do you know what? There's a big flaw in this network marketing thing. I think it's brilliant for the education. The products are always good. They're always good. I love Amway products. There's a cleaning product that I would just buy from anyone who would sell it to me. Unbelievable, really good. But then there's a flaw in that the companies, I don't know if you know, Modere has just closed down. It's another company, exactly. They're fly-by-nights in some respects, except the Amways and, you know, the Arbons and they're these core companies that keep it going.
But your point about how could you leave kind of thing, a lot of people see network marketing and think they're cults.
Yeah.
And they're not. They're just a clever marketing where lots of people, ordinary people, can rise up through and make exceptional amounts of money.
Yeah.
But because there is this like pack-like approach almost, which exists in many areas, many businesses, probably even in barristers. You know, how could you leave being a barrister? You know,
exactly
you make us look bad.
Oh.
So they're all protective, but people, you've got to do. Oh, I mean, two things. One, I want to understand how much the money loss affected you. Did you lick your wounds for a while? It affected me for a few months. And then what was the trigger to get you back over it? Mine was finding the self-development books, Richard Branson, in the library. But also, what made you happy, or not even happy, is like comfortable with the decision to go from such a respected, academically based career to door-to-door selling or person-to-person selling.
Business owners, are you ready to break through the ceiling and take your income and your impact to the next level? Welcome to the Growth Syndicate, where growth gets real. Led by UK entrepreneur and business powerhouse Mike Green, this is more than just mentorship. This is a movement, a syndicate of elite minds, experts in law, media, branding, finance, wellness, leadership, and more, all united with one mission: your growth. Whether you're stuck at 6 figures or sprinting towards 7, the Growth Syndicate gives you the tools, the team, and the tactical edge to scale smarter, faster, and with unstoppable momentum. No fluff, no hype, just real strategies, real connections, and real results. So if you're done playing small and ready to unlock the business and life, it's time. Join the Growth Syndicate today, because where growth gets real, success gets inevitable.
It was tough. That was a big challenge. And you did ask that question. I kind of skirted around it, but it was a very difficult decision to make. And I had to think, there's something they say, isn't it? People's opinions don't pay your bills. Yeah. And that's where I was. I thought I could stay with chambers where, for example, I had a head of chambers who was stealing my business from me. So business I'd built, he was stealing from me. People were calling for me, and he was telling the senior clerk to tell them that I wasn't available and to redirect my business elsewhere. So I've been through all of that. And then I was at another set of chambers, and I have one of my core friends. You've mentioned one friend a decade. And this one is it Stacey? I'm going to mention her. She was a barrister and qualified maybe 3 or 4 years before me. And when I didn't get accepted in the first place, I moved on to this other place, which was really, I'm not going to mention his name. It was a senior barrister who'd set up chambers and basically was milking off a lot of young, willing barristers. So he did really well.
So just because they're a barrister doesn't mean they're honest.
No, exactly. It really doesn't. It really doesn't. And a lot of them, there are the odd ones that like to make money, but in the wrong way. So Stacey was one of my colleagues there, and we're still the best of friends now. She's the person I laugh the most with. There's always one friend.
Lovely.
We'll sit here, have a chat, and we'll just look at a picture. We might see Hugh Grant's eye and start giggling. And we just literally, we see the same thing. We bounce off each other. And the beauty is Stacey is now 9 years older than I am, but we don't have that barrier. We just have our shared, we have that in common. And we go back 20 odd years now.
So did she help you through the failure? Or
She did. And she was one of the first people that said to me, I'll buy some of your stuff. That's the thing. There was another friend, Joanna from university, the decade before, I'll buy some of your stuff. I'll come to your presentations. Yeah. And they were always there for me, no matter what I'd decided. Joanna's a big-time commercial property lawyer. She's really respected and she's achieved amazing things. She's sought after, headhunted all the time and highly successful, but always had my back, always bought every cream or lotion and potion that I was selling. So it's those people around me.
So if someone else who's listening or sees a short of this or the episode and they're 30 and they're disillusioned and they think I should change, but I'm 30, I shouldn't change, I should stay. You know, the people are saying, why would you leave us? This is a good job.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who's 30 and feeling that? And I mean, not just like it's easy to say, yeah, go on, girl, go on, boy, you do that.
Yeah.
But what should they expect if they walk away? And what do they need to get them through that degree of a transition?
I think that's a really interesting question. I think 3-part answer coming, and I'll keep it brief. I think the first thing is you have to accept that you're going to lose a lot to change. Now, it could be people around you. It could be the respect of people around you, if that's an important thing.
Yeah.
You may be broke. I ended up living back at my mum and dad's house, and they drove me mad. They drove me nuts. Why are you in so late? It's 2 a.m. I was like, I'm 30 years old. Why should I not go out? I'm 32 years old. Why should I not go out? But then the second point is really look at yourself and think, what is it you actually want? What are you trying to achieve? Off the back of losing all of those things, you achieve and you gain so much more. And if it's that peace and quiet because people aren't around you or the respect isn't, you know, that pressure of wanting to be respected has gone. The clarity you get from that is huge. And I think the third thing is, and you mentioned earlier, that one friend a decade. You're going to have a handful of people that don't really care what you do or don't do. And they support you anyway. For all the grief my parents gave me, how could you study so long and now you're not doing anything? You sold beds out the back of a van and we had this amazing shop and we turned over millions, Mike, and lost it as quickly.
I've been there.
You know, and it's like, but Mum, that's learning. That's how I've learnt to do it. And then I'd have the arguments with them. I said, well, you've been in the same house and the same place. And I'm not disrespectful of that. I appreciate that now. But at the time, I really gave it back to them. They were giving it to me. My dad would sit there. I'm doing up a flyer for a promotions evening. You're never going to make any money selling stuff. You know that. And I was like, are you joking, Dad? My dad worked for British Telecom for 40 years. And he moved jobs within it and he progressed and he had a great career to an extent. But at the end of it, they gave him a 40-inch TV. He's going to hate me for saying that. But that's the reality.
Well, and look, we all make our choices.
We do.
And we all learn, and we're all part of the tapestry of the next generation. You talked about legacy when we first started talking. And, you know, my mum was a cleaner all her life, but she gave us loads of love. She would go without, you know. I would go to bed at night hearing that sewing machine whir away because she did piecework, so they dropped the materials off, and we went to bed and she carried on. Well, I thought, does that woman ever bloody sleep?
Yeah.
Now, I could look back at that and say, why didn't she have ambition? Well, firstly, that wasn't how she was made. Her job was looking after us.
Right.
But equally, her going without made me determined to I bought her 2 homes before she died and gave her choices and let her take the money out of a house that she'd bought to enjoy that a little bit, because she'd have died poor even though she had equity in a council house she bought. So people's role in each other's life sometimes might just be to show them what they don't want. Exactly. And that's not bad.
No.
And actually, as parents, often we're moving on one step and we want them to leapfrog us.
Yeah.
And then some of them might go back a little bit and oh shit, that's the tapestry. That's the ingredients that individually are not nice, but together create this beautiful life recipe. Mm-hmm. And it's really important to recognize, if your mum wasn't your mum, your dad wasn't your dad, your friends weren't your friends, was you meant to hear them dissing your being a woman and might have a baby suggestion?
Yeah.
I'm a great believer in everything's happening just the way it should.
Exactly. And for a reason.
Yeah.
And I think, that brings me to that last point, the people around you. How do you, without my mum and dad, I could possibly have been homeless. But they were there. They gave me all the grief in the world. But I always had a warm
and I'm sure you were driving them crazy.
I drove them insane. They're like, what are you doing with your life? And I was out 30 years old, out on the Raz till 3 or 4 in the morning and loving it, by the way. But I had a great time. And then I found myself just doing all of that. And I just pulled back a little bit. And I thought,
when you say found yourself, because I love it when people say this, or they have this kind of light bulb moment or pivot moment. What happened and what was it that was the kind of moment?
I don't think there's any one event that I could point to, but I think it was the realisation that I could do better in spite of, and I had done that before. Yeah. And it was just looking back on everything that I had, and I suddenly realised, you know what? I've got this incredible profession that I've been a part of, turned my back on for a while.
Yeah.
I could be doing something really good with that in my own way. And that's when I kind of woke up, still in network marketing, still enjoying it for what it was, fantastic products, the peak of health, I was in great shape, I was energized. And I suddenly thought, okay, I'm going to contact somebody who I'd been in touch with, who had instructed me when I first started as a barrister. And I'll always be grateful to her, because she then worked at an insurance company. And she said, look, I'm heading up this litigation department and we need a barrister. I was like, okay. So I struck a deal. Pay me by the day for doing this. I'll do 2 days a week. And the rest of the time I can do whatever I want to do. Well, actually, no. Fast forward. Before that, I went into recruitment because I was a recruiter first when I lived in Ireland. And recruitment was good because I had the stable salary. But again, I was part of an organisation. Tough gig. Really tough. And lawyers, that was it. Yeah. So in Ireland, I was the first qualified legal recruiter in the country.
Oh, wow.
So I mopped up then, which was great. Came back to London, different market, much more challenging. But this crowd wanted me to set up in Ireland. Yeah. I lasted a year there, and I'm not one to drop in and out of things. I don't like it. But it gave me a springboard, got my own flat, set up, rekindled this relationship with this lady. They then paid me by the day to go in and manage all of their litigation.
Nice.
And I saved that insurance company about £10 million through a declaration process that we'd created. And I kind of fine-tuned that. I regret not writing a book, because that would have been the guide to the whole profession.
It's never too late.
I know, and other people were then doing it. So I kind of lost my moment. But from then on, I was very grateful to her, because that just springboarded into everything else. And I went back into chambers. I then became deputy head of chambers at the chambers I joined. Then I was head of chambers, and I had a great few years there. Yeah. I then got married, met my husband within a year of that, got married 2 years later. Fast forward, had Harrison 2 years after that. And the rest has kind of just snowballed. But
And I dare say, if you hadn't left chambers and had all that life experience that you did in between, I mean, as you were saying about leaving it and then wanting to, and then going back, I didn't know why, because it's normally said in terms of relationships, but there's a saying that is something like, if you love something, let it go, and if it was meant to be, it will come back. If it wasn't, it won't.
That's right.
Sort of thing. So it come back into your life, but in your life experience in between, the selling, the connecting, the failure, all of these things probably made you a much better barrister the second time round.
Absolutely.
And a businesswoman.
And a businesswoman. And I think that's the point. So there's very few lawyers that are business people. There's a handful, a really, really small minority. And that was my thing. So I came into my own, and I went back into chambers, still bored with the academic. And I thought, but never mind. I can actually turn this around and do something. So becoming head of chambers was really good because it gave me the experience in that particular area. That's a headache.
Yeah.
But I've since set up my own chambers. I've set up a law firm.
Brilliant.
And I've been ripped off along the way. People abuse your kindness and your generosity of time. And I did one piece of work, Mike, and I never got paid for it. And it was incredible because this guy sold me a dream and then said, I've got these paralegals, they can work with you. We'll do the report writing. We'll do all of this. And I went with it and I lived on peanuts for about 2 years. During COVID, the beginning of it, like everyone else, lockdown, sitting in my home office, twiddling my thumbs, walking, eating lots of food, drinking lots of wine, baking cakes. Who knew I had a talent for that? And on the back of all of that, I did this report. It took me 6 months. It was really dull, about consumer credit and consumer law. Dull as doorknobs. Got it done. But this guy never paid me. I only charged him $1,800 plus VAT. He tarted it around everywhere. So all the big players in that industry had seen my opinion. But he left my name on the bottom of it. Did me a massive favour. Because through lockdown, I thought, what am I going to do like everyone else?
This sounds like a modern version of LA Law.
It's incredible.
I mean, forget a book. You could have a TV programme on this. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, cheating.
Incredible. Shocking. So we go through all of that. And I think, right, okay, we set up WM Legal, which we have now. Hey, it's still not paid for this report, by the way, but it's gone everywhere. So I get invited to a meeting with one of the funders and they're investing 200 million. There's a lot of money floating around.
Wow.
And I'm introduced to all these people because this guy's using me to springboard. Is that no problem? We use each other. We develop. I didn't have a problem with that. I'd gone in completely naive. And everyone knows who I am. Like, how do you know? We've seen your report. We've based our business on... He's not told me. And so from then on, things just went through the roof because I met all of them and they were all saying, would you work with us? Will you work with us? I can work with all of them, unencumbered as a barrister. And that's where this part of the journey began, literally just after lockdown. It's incredible. Yeah. Incredible. And it's just been this massive...
Well, and it makes me think, as you say it, about the saying that, sometimes you think, your work all got buried. You were buried in the problems. And the saying is, you weren't buried, you were planted. And then suddenly it comes to life and it blossoms and so on.
Yeah, it took its time. I got to 40 years old and thought, what am I doing with my life? And I just thought, I've got a child.
So the decades are important to you, aren't they?
Massively,
30, 40.
Massively. I'm looking forward to my 50s, like you wouldn't believe. Not there yet, but I'm really looking forward to it.
When I was 50, I had a massive party, actually. And people would say, 50 now. I say, yeah, I'm halfway. It's like there's loads of time left.
Yeah. But it's incredible. And it's just the attitude I now have is I accept the failures. I still struggle with it. So I mentioned to you earlier some of the challenges I've had. I think the business is run probably, and I'm going to share this with you, at a small loss for the last 6 months.
Yeah.
It hasn't been that big a deal because of everything that was done before. But what I don't want to do is deplete resources. I want to now use that money to invest in other things and the foundation, the sports projects, all the other stuff that can be, all the good stuff, and property maybe, and it's just...
Yeah, I mean, people struggle with loss.
Yeah.
And who wants to go into business to not make money? But sometimes it's about, back to that, planting those seeds, building those relationships, having faith. You can build the reputation and you'll build the business. Sometimes people are so focused on making the profit early on that they are all profit focused and not reputation focused, all profit focused and not relationship focused.
Yeah.
And it's like, put the time in, it will germinate, it will blossom, it will bloom, it will plant its own seeds, and that's when it scales.
Yeah.
And you're not letting that affect you. I mean, we were talking earlier about the foundation you're setting up, and you're obviously a strong person, but perhaps should say no a little bit more. But
yes,
I mean, look, you've got a great law firm. I know, because I know your reputation. I know the good standing. We were introduced through Peterborough Football Club, posh business breakfast, and you have a presence about you. And I say that not to blow smoke up your bum, but because you do, and I know you're massively respected, and you're still giving back to the community. She's been in Antigua, and I thought she's been on holiday. Then you tell me, no. It
wasn't really a holiday. Exactly.
So tell us about the foundation and what you do.
Well, that's interesting. So as I said to you earlier, my dad's Antiguan, and through him I've met the High Commissioner to the UK and Europe, She's a great friend of mine now. We've known each other for a few years, and we're kindred spirits.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I'd love to spend more time with her, but she's so incredibly busy. She's in demand. She's all over the world doing what she's doing. Right. An incredible woman. And she'll love me for saying that. Hi, Karen May.
I want to meet you, Karen.
You're going to meet her. She's exceptional. Yeah. And she's one of those people that also has propelled me in the last 5 years. Just being around her, she has a presence that is just incredible. She's massively respected. And that's in all different sectors. Yeah. And I'd approached her about the Caribbean Games. And I said, can we find somebody? I'd love to see somebody hosting this in Antigua as the first, or so it's inter-island games. Yeah. And she said, I can't think of anybody. And she came back to me and said, why don't you do it? I was like, yeah, right. And the rest, I don't have time.
She's deadly serious.
I think she was. And she just planted that seed. And then I had a conversation, and the conversations kept going, what's happening with that? And I said, look, I've got this idea. If we set up a foundation and that the games can fund the foundation, I'll do it. I'll do it because it's not something that, it's not my main thing. My main thing is my law firm, it was, and I was involved in different projects. And it's got to be a case of it really having some impact. I mentioned impact earlier. And last year, the Posh were fantastic. And they had provided us lots of kits that we took over to Antigua. We branded them WM Legal. Of course we did. So it was a win-win, great partnership with them. It's been exceptional. And the impact is not just in Antigua. Obviously, it's locally as well. But I'll come back to that shortly. And we had these kits all over Antigua for the Antigua Cup. And they got a mention on national news in Antigua, tiny island, but and we really used that on LinkedIn and everywhere else to promote what we were doing. And everyone was saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then, the High Commissioner said to me, why don't you just do it? So I'd gone to the guys that own the corporate games and I'd said, look, we can do it through a foundation. I don't want it to cost a penny because I want the money that is generated to go into that. Wrangling anyway, I'm now the licence holder. Long story. I couldn't say no, could I?
No, and then could, but you
didn't. I could. But what's been exceptional is the amount of high-profile support we've got. Got the High Commissioner for Grenada, Sports Minister,
but also
Antigua.
Changing lives. You were saying that you go along and these kids are playing football without boots,
without boots, no shin pads.
They're just doing it out of passion, and some incredible sports people there. Suddenly, you can give them the tools to do an even better job. They can get recognised, and I remember we used to sponsor through a charity a few children around the world, and it's not a lot more than a cup of coffee a day sort of thing. But it's their food, their medicine, and their education. And you sort of think, is it going to really make a difference? It changes every generation after that. It really
does.
Because if they, through an education, can get a slightly better job, and because of their education, they teach their siblings as well. Yeah. So not just the one child gets educated, the whole family get educated, and then every generation thereafter has a leg up.
This is it. And it's that help that they don't have. So little things. We went to apparently one of the best playing fields in Antigua. But there were no toilet facilities. Right. It's attached to a primary school. The head teacher had the key, but she forgot the key to the pump room that gets the water into the bathroom to make it sanitary. So it was unsanitary. So she said, right, toilets for a state, I'm closing it up. Jeez. And it was just like, right, okay, so where are the boys? Where are the kids going to go to the bathroom? There was nowhere to go. Round the back. And it was just, that's not good enough. A portaloo does not cost that much to hire for a week. So even with competitions and tournaments like that, we can provide a toilet. We can provide boots. We can provide shin pads. We did kits last year. Who knows? A Posh might have some excess kits that they'll give to us again. But that's another partnership that we're trying to create.
So what's the foundation called, though, so we can give it
It's the Bright Horizons Foundation.
Bright Horizons.
Bright Horizons, yeah. A bit of a quirky name, but I think the thing is, it's that future impact that we were looking to encapsulate, I think, in the name.
Talking about future, because believe it or not, I think we've been speaking about 50 minutes. It goes really quickly.
Have we really?
Yeah.
Sorry.
But talking about future horizons and so on, what's next for Lisa Weston? The next 10 years, 20 years?
Yeah. Everyone says, what's your retirement plan? I don't have one. Mark.
No,
genuinely.
I'm not talking retirement, but what I'm saying is, if you had a bucket list, have you got a bucket list? What hasn't been done? If you, in the same way we said, if you went back to 30 years old and sort of had a conversation. What if you went forward to 70 years old? What would you have wanted to make sure that you could change or do or achieve?
That's interesting. I think the foundation has been on my bucket list for a long time. I thought, well, just do it. However it looks, just deal with that. So I envisage that will not just be Caribbean based, it will be global. That's my goal in the next 15 years. Wow. And I'm doing that quickly.
Massive.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And by, I suppose, piggybacking off my legal work and where it's now taken me, we're working a lot with citizenship by investment programs and, tax nomadism. People, high net worth clients are looking to, do their thing, protect their assets. And by helping them do that, we're developing on a global scale, which is incredible. And you meet some incredible people that want to give back and donate and support. And the foundation for me is that platform that I can do that through. So I'm really excited about that.
And, as you say that, it reminds me so much. And I think it's the Steve Jobs address to, I think it was either Stanford or Harvard, but if you Google the Steve Jobs address, it's a 90-minute video. And he talks a lot about purpose and passion and so on. But he also talks about joining the dots. And he says, you should always have a goal, because people with goal have a focus, if you like, and that they have direction. But when you look back, it would have never been in the direction you chose. No. And it will be a chance moment, a decision, a failure. Someone asked in the question that you can't say no to, even though you think I should probably say no to. And I think we all have purpose. And it feels to me like you're probably exactly on purpose.
Oh, I'm there. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing with us today and just bringing that passion, that energy that you still exude and so on. But if there was one more message that you'd want to give, if Harrison was listening to this in a month, a year, 10 years time, what would be your kind of current, because I'm sure there's decades left of story, but what would be your current kind of go-to message you'd want to give him, the world, people who aren't sure where they're going?
Don't be scared.
Don't be scared.
Don't be scared, because it's scary. I've had a scary start to the year, and I'm thinking, brush that off, because you've been through so much more, and you always come through at the other end. We all do. Whether we see it in the now or not, it's just don't be scared. Have courage to do what it is you want to do. And that's a big thing.
It's a great message. We live in fear so much, and yet, I often say to people, whether you're going through bankruptcy, homelessness, and we've been there and we've done that, or challenges, or doubt, or a relationship break, all of these things, you have survived every minute of every day of your life so far. Logic says you could and should and probably will survive, if not thrive, every minute of your future. Embrace it. Don't be scared. Go feet first in. And if you're thinking something's not right, change it. If it was meant to be, it will come back.
Absolutely. And everything will be okay.
And
it's always okay.
With that, I think we'll end up doing another podcast at some point.
I would love to. Thank you, Mike. I could talk for another 2 hours, clearly.
Easy. We did the first time we met. I was only coming for a 15-minute coffee. But,
brilliant. Thank you for
really
having me,
appreciate
Mike.
it.
Brilliant.
And thank you. If you've enjoyed it as much as we have, please do like, share, subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you on another episode of Success is a System soon.